Native Americans are the most popular mascots in sports in the United States. Due to the prevalence of Native American stereotypes in popular culture, many people have trouble understanding issues surrounding Native American mascots. Many sports fans dismiss issues surrounding the use of Native American mascots as an argument that political correctness has gone too far. The main issues surrounding Native American mascot use are the racist stereotypes they represent. In U.S. society, Native Americans are understood in one of two ways, either as bloodthirsty savages who are wild and violent, or as noble savages who are primitive, silent, and part of the natural world. It is the first stereotype that led many non-natives to select Native Americans as their mascot, representing bravery, aggressiveness, and a fighting spirit. The use of Native Americans as mascots impacts Native students the most. These mascots create an unwelcoming environment and result in lower self-esteem and mental health in youth. Native youth have the highest dropout rate, the lowest graduation rate, and the highest suicide rate among any ethnicity. While many non-natives consider Native American mascots as an honorable tribute to Native Americans, it is offensive to consider them in such an animal-like way.
According to the Cambridge Dictionary, cultural appropriation is defined as the act of taking or using things from a culture that is not your own, especially without showing that you understand or respect this culture. Cultural appropriation is shown when sports teams use Native American mascots. These sports teams are using sacred aspects of the Native American culture and not showing respect and understanding for their cultural backgrounds or practices by using them in this way. Through this cultural appropriation, they are perpetuating racial stereotypes and the dark historical patterns of oppression towards this group of people. There are many people that will argue that using team names such as Chiefs, Indians, or Seminoles is meant to honor Native Americans. However, what they seem to ignore is that they are not actually doing anything to respect or even learn about these cultures, especially when some of the students of these schools are Native American themselves. This lack of respect and understanding is shown when many people could tell you the names of all the sports teams that use these Native American mascots, but cannot actually tell you anything about the culture of the people that these mascots represent. The continued support of these Native American mascots is insensitive and demeaning to the culture of Native Americans. It demonstrates domination and claiming power over a subordinate group by using their culture for personal gains.
Cultural appropriation has been normalized and affects many people of different races and backgrounds. For Native Americans, caricatures and stereotypes are harmful because they disregard the personhood of a Native American. There is an inequality gap in benefits between small rural heritages and those exploiting their culture for commercial gain or even tourism. The profits made by those who are doing the exploiting almost never benefit those who created the culture. Therefore, Native Americans are having their own culture exploited for the dominant group's personal benefit. Cultural Survival magazine writes that Native American images and symbols are used to sell sports teams, sports gear, toys, and even cars. Normalized images of Native American cultures for commercial or personal gain has labeled the people as having traditionally stood as signs of fetishes for such contradictory concepts as primitiveness, nature, spirituality, unbridled sexuality, violence, nobility, or heathenness. This includes negative connotations in Wild West stories, film, and even fashion. Those who are colonized may even start believing the stereotypes created about their culture by dominant groups because it becomes so normalized. This is also described as the oppressed come to accept their own exploitation. This becomes a problem when looking at the preservation of culture over time. How is a culture's traditions and history supposed to be preserved when they're commonly portrayed negatively in society? In order to solve the problem of cultural appropriation involving Native Americans, we must acknowledge how they are negatively portrayed in our media. This includes sports mascots, as well as debunking common stereotypes associated with them.
Now we will be talking about derogatory images and stereotypes. In almost any portrait that we see of a Native American, they are represented with a tomahawk and scalping knife in hand, as if they possess no other but a barbarous nature. Meanwhile, Yarrow Americans are depicted as innocent victims of savagery. This ongoing perception of Indians as dangerous and violent contributes to negative expectations, interactions, and consequences. Indians are incarcerated at high rates, encounter discrimination and hate crimes, and experience other negative impacts. These stereotypes lead non-native people to fear natives. The barbarous nature representation of Indians continues to pervade American culture via school curriculum, books and toys, sports teams, media advertisements, and other means. There are many words and phrases that have become a shorthand to refer to all Native people in a stereotypical way, including savage, brave, chief, or redskin. Some of these words can be traced to specific Native languages, but have been removed from their cultural origin and turned into generic labels. These stereotypes are even used as a way to make a profit. For hundreds of years, merchants have used images of American Indians to advertise and market merchandise like tobacco. Native American mascots have very little to do with Native Americans, as they do not represent indigenous men and women. Some mascots used are braves, chiefs, Indians, savages, redskins, and warriors. In attempting to represent ideals of bravery and aggression, these mascots are used at all types of schools. In addition to the names, the mascots use red face, do Indian dances and rituals at halftime, and even use face paint and feathered headdresses. These representations have become normalized in American society. In schools K through 12 and colleges, they have changed these practices through efforts made by opponents of Indian mascots. However, professional teams such as the Washington Redskins and Cleveland Indians have been the most resistant to change. A common belief in the United States implies that everyone has the right to use Indians as they see fit, as if everyone owns them. This sense of entitlement and expression of white privilege has a long history, manifesting itself in national narratives, popular entertainments, marketing schemes, sporting worlds, and self-improvement regimes.
Although some people think that these images pay homage to Native Americans, they are rarely portrayed in contemporary ways and therefore narrow the stereotypical image of what a Native American looks like. A series of studies found that mascots as representations of Native American culture undermines Native Americans' feelings of self-worth at the individual and the community levels. Exposure to indigenous mascots led to a depressed state of self-esteem in Native American people. Native Americans in this study felt as though they could not take action in their community to make a difference as a result of these negative stereotypes. Clinical psychologists have determined that these derogatory images lower Native American children's self-esteem. They feel their cultures being belittled from a young age. A study of Native American college students found that students viewed themselves as having limited academic potential after being exposed to a mascot image, because the image reminded them of the limited ways in which society views them. Native American students, thus, were less likely to view themselves as having potential for achievement. The fact that higher education institutions continue to ensure these icons suggests insensitivity and also an urge for domination. These images encourage sports opponents to mock Native Americans. They deter cross-cultural understanding because they are an inaccurate depiction of the culture of indigenous people. These symbols prevent higher education from achieving its goal of transcending boundaries to encourage relations between all students. As far as recommendations go, research and observations have shown there is probably no middle ground that respects indigenous people and promotes understanding of their culture. These images need to be eliminated, and references to Native American culture should be consulted with the many organizations dedicated to educating people on Native American culture and to opposing these harmful and racist symbols in sports. Here are our discussion questions. 1. What would you predict are the other psychological effects of Native American sports mascots? 2. Do you think there could be a solution that could keep Native American mascots in a respectful manner? How would sports teams make sure they are honoring Native American culture and not misconstruing it? And 3. If these Native American mascots were switched to something different, what are some ways these sports teams can prevent their fans from becoming angry and/or rejecting the new team mascot? Thanks for listening to our presentation. We hope you'll take the time to consider how Native American mascots might affect those around you and think about how you interact with these mascots.